afternoon. You are listening to KDUX Web Radio, broadcast live from Richland College in Dallas, Texas. We are the voice of Richland College. Views expressed on this show are our own unless otherwise stated and do not reflect the opinion of KDUX Web Radio, Richland College, or the DCCCD. We are the Philosophy Club Radio Hour, and today's topic is, can we identify as a different age? For example, if I feel like I'm 21 when I'm actually 16, even though I'm actually 24, then should I be allowed to do that? And should people be made to respect the fact that I feel that age? So that's the topic for this week. We had a very interesting discussion on Tuesday. A lot of opinions, a lot of thoughts about this. And the vice president is actually not here today. He was very excited about this topic. He would have had some things to say, but shout out to Race. We will miss you.
Also include race. We also talked about changing race as well, or ethnicity.
Race and ethnicity, that's right. Because it's allowed with gender, so why should it not be allowed for other things as well? That was kind of the premise of it. I was not there for the entirety of the meeting. So, were you? Yeah, you weren't there. Do you want to kind of do a quick recap? Not really?
Mm-mm.
All right, we'll just start from scratch then. Opinions and thoughts, you guys. Hit me.
Well, I'm Skylar, by the way.
What's up? I don't think your mic's working. Say something into the mic.
Testing.
Nope, not working. Try a different one, because sometimes that one doesn't work, I think. What's that one?
Testing.
That one on, yes.
Great.
All right.
So, when we're talking about feelings, I feel like they're always, it's just in our heads. It's nothing biological. It's nothing physical. It's thoughts or feelings or something presented in our consciousness that we've developed over years through nurture and a little bit of nature, a little bit of your genes
Mm-hmm.
can determine your personality and things like that. But when we get into, I feel like I'm something physically different, then we go down the slippery slope of what we can and can't identify as.
Right.
Because if I, like, can I identify as a dog? Can I identify as a CE? Can I identify as Bill Gates? Can I identify as the CEO of a company? How far can you take it before it just gets out of hand and everyone's not who they say they are, or not who they seem they are?
So you're kind of taking it from a perspective of like nature versus nurture. And I, from what I heard on Tuesday, a lot of people were taking the more like maturity versus biology standpoint. So you mature sometimes faster or slower than you age biologically, right?
Right.
So a 12-year-old could have different life experiences that make him feel like he is essentially older than he actually is. But he's in actuality still 12, right? But he has that different level of maturity. But that, I don't think that should mean that he's allowed to go and say, you know, I feel like I'm 21 today, so go ahead and hit me up with some tequila, you know?
Yeah. Maturity and age are two different things.
Exactly.
Age is merely a measure of the time you've been alive. So you can't change the measure. If I measure this table and it's 2 feet, I can't say this table identifies as 3 feet. This table is 2 feet. That's an immutable fact.
Right.
Yeah, and like if I look at my watch and a minute passes and I'm like, man, that felt like an hour.
That doesn't mean it was an hour. Right. That's interesting that you're differentiating between feeling and fact as well. I thought that was
especially with age. I mean, it goes with race too, but age is like, yeah, time is something we can physically measure.
Right.
Facts.
Yeah, facts. So, I don't know. I don't have honestly that much to say on this topic. To be honest,
we could go with. So why do people feel like they identify as a different age, or say they want to be 60 years old, or if I want to be a 6-year-old girl or whatever, have you. What do you think that comes from, or what do you think that like starts, and or why they want to do it, or why they?
I mean, maybe
identify
they attribute negative feelings to being that the age that they are. That's the only thing I can think of, honestly. Or maybe they, going from like a kind of a weird psychological perspective. Hey, Jack. They maybe they feel like they would be better at 60 or 30, right? Maybe they didn't, or maybe they grew up around a parent that they really loved, right? Or a grandparent, and chas v'shalom, that parent or grandparent, they passed away, and so then they kind of feel that attachment, and they want to become that. I don't know.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I've always thought that it's just come from this place of like alienation, where you don't feel like you fit in with your current peers or current group of friends, the environment you're around, and so you want to be a part of something that you're not, in order to feel included and to feel accepted. And that goes with a lot of I don't know what this broad term is called, just identification of, or whatever you want to call it. And part of it could be just not wanting to be, I don't know, normal or part of the crowd. And so you almost want to, differentiate yourself, or say, hey, I'm unique because X, Y, Z, and be a part of, the counterculture or what have you.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because, I mean, you could see it back in the 60s, like in the 60s we had hippies. Those are the people, going against the culture, saying, and, people outside looking in would be like, oh, they're just, they're just doing their own thing. They're not, based in reality, talking about peace and love. That's not how the world works, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And nowadays, that culture's not really normalized, but it's definitely like a bigger... It's not as weird now. Like vinyl sales have been up like 500% the past decade.
Right.
It's a trend now.
Yeah.
But now you see stuff like like people identifying as animals, as like younger ages, different ethnicities, and so who knows where we'll be. In 20 years, what we'll be identifying. I identify as a black hole that we just took a picture of.
All right, so I'm going to change the topic because I don't like this topic. Sorry. And I'm the ex-communication officer. Get it? That was a joke. Anyway, let's see. Ideas?
Mental health.
Mental health. Oh, that's actually interesting because Cameron was. You want to kind of go ahead and do like what does Maisie say? Unashamed plug?
Yeah.
Shameless plug, yeah.
I'm like so confused. Like I don't know where to start.
It's just so amazing, that's why. Sorry.
Mental health awareness is amazing.
Yes,
Mental
that's
health
right. Oh yeah, that's what I meant. Just to be clear, oh God.
Yeah, I was going to say, what's the plug for?
Okay, yeah.
So on April 23rd and April 24th, which just happened by mistake to fall on like the same days that there's a lot of things happening in relation to like the philosophy club.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, we're having this nonprofit organization come out and talk about suicide prevention and mental health awareness, and yeah,
that sounds awesome. Yeah, it just to kind of like bring mental health awareness on campus to a new level. I know that they have, what was it, Fresh Check Day?
Yeah.
Yeah, they had that last semester, and they had different things going on. They had, actually my favorite part was they had like this, what do you call it? It's like a cardboard thing, like a, whatever. And then they had sticky notes that they would have people write down on them reasons to live. And, by the end of the day, there were thousands of sticky notes just all pasted on this poster board. That's what it is. And I thought that was a beautiful thought, just to kind of bring awareness up and bring...
to destigmatize it.
Yeah, exactly. Because people are really afraid of mental illness. If you're not experiencing it, you're afraid of it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people, and I think people don't like to admit that. But a lot of, especially college students and just people under a lot of stress, struggle from anxiety and depression. Not to mention other kinds of mental illnesses, like, there's a lot. There's
bipolar,
bipolar, all of these. And I think it's just an opportunity to realize that there is not anything to be afraid of, I think.
Right. It's like breaking your arm.
Yeah.
Going to seeing a therapist should just be like seeing a doctor.
Exactly. And a lot of even insurances won't cover therapy and different things like that so that you can get better from mental health and different things like that.
I thought most did. 'Cause at least the one I'm on does.
Okay, that's good.
So I don't know about y'all.
I don't have insurance.
Yeah.
So don't break my arm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically.
Don't break your head either.
Yeah. That was oddly specific. Are you planning something here? I'm just kidding.
No, I was just mentioning that that's a fact because yeah, it should just be normal to go see a therapist every once in a while. I mean,
Yeah.
I've been dealing with mental health
Good to know.
struggles for what, like 8 years now,
Mhm.
something crazy like that. And you never just solve it and like, all right,
Mm-hmm.
it's gone forever. It's always gonna be a part of you, and so you just find new ways of dealing with it, new ways of coping, new ways of just thinking about the world and how we interact with it. Because I think a lot of people just don't want to be vulnerable and talk
It's brave to be vulnerable. It's really scary. Yeah.
It is scary at first. And I mean, I can speak from experience because in high school, like I was super quiet and I still am now, but like I'm coming out of my shell and,
Good for you.
thanks. But, it feels it's like putting your, feet in a cold pool. Like at first it's like, this is cold, but once you get into it, like, this feels, or hot tub would be a better explanation. Cause at first it's hot, but as you get in it, it's pretty nice.
Right.
And so if we have people, or if we have more people, I guess, destigmatizing mental health, talking about it more, being open about what you're struggling with, what, like, if someone asks you, are you okay? Not just saying, oh, I'm fine. If like, are you really okay? What's going on? What can I do to help your situation or help you feel better? Or, what do you want to do to like distract you from the issue or whatever you're dealing with?
Mm-hmm.
I will say this. I think it's also important that when someone comes to you with an issue, that sometimes you just listen and you're not necessarily like
Giving advice.
Because sometimes it's like a person needs to like vent. They're not necessarily looking in that time to like, how can I fix the problem? Like, but here's the problem. This is how I feel. Because I think when you try to give someone advice, you're almost saying like, not necessarily like they play a part, but, oh, you can do this differently. And you're not necessarily you're not acknowledging how that person is feeling or how being in this situation is just putting them at a crossroads that's just making them truly feel uncomfortable. I think it's also, besides just listening, it's also important that when someone says something like, oh, I got upset, you don't shrug it off like, oh, that person is just being typical.
That person.
So
yeah.
Even if they laugh it off, you'd be like, oh, well, that seems like that really hurt you. How does that make you feel? Instead of just like laughing it off with them and just like, because I think a lot of people, they drop like hints because they want people to care, but they don't want to make themselves extremely vulnerable because you can make yourself vulnerable to the wrong people. So like they drop hints or like, oh, well, I did this or this. And sometimes that's why it's like, really important to look for those signs, and why things like this is important, and understanding suicide for prevention, because they tell you what to look for in a person. And like,
right.
and understanding like, oh, well, when someone starts doing this or when they start doing that, this is someone that's going like in like a dark hole, and you want to stop them before like it's too late. I think it's important that you ask people those deeper level questions. You ask them, oh, you just don't take people at their word. Like if a person seems upset and they're like, oh, I'm okay, you don't want to push the person either. But you want to try to understand, well, like, hey, if you feel like talking,
I'm
like,
here for
I'm
you,
here.
right.
Not just like, oh, okay. Like, you just take them at their word that they're fine.
Yeah.
My mom, go ahead.
Oh, when I was saying, ask how can I help? I mean, it could be anything from venting to they just need a hug, or you ask it in the way that, how do you want me to help you, and like that.
Right, rather than how can I help you the way that I would like to be helped, you know?
Most
Right.
people just like want understanding.
Yeah.
Like, you don't even have to like.
They
fully
want to feel like they belong almost,
Yeah, you
yeah.
don't even have to like really empathize. Just like listening to that person makes them feel heard.
Give them the time of day, yeah.
Yeah, or just like, I think a lot of times we do it unintentionally. We invalidate people's feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, maybe you read too much into it. You can't. How someone feels is how they feel. You can't say they're wrong or right for feeling that way. You can't say, well, you misread this, because clearly something happened in that situation that made that person feel uncomfortable. So you can't say they're wrong for feeling uncomfortable. You should ask, well, how did that make you feel uncomfortable, or why did that make you feel uncomfortable, instead of saying it shouldn't have made you feel uncomfortable.
Right. That's interesting. This is actually something that my mom is really good at, because she will, my mom always knows when like I'm upset, or, any of her kids are upset, right? So instead of being, well, first of all, she doesn't take I'm fine for an answer, which I actually really appreciate about her. She'll press the issue. She'll be like, no, what's wrong? What's wrong? That's just how she is. But then when you start telling her, she won't sit there and be like, well, you were wrong for doing this, you were wrong for doing that, and you should probably do this differently. She'll just sit there and she'll listen. She is so good at listening. And I don't know, it just makes you feel validated, and like everything is going to be okay, even though like she didn't even like help her say, or maybe the crazy thing is, like, sometimes when somebody just allows you to talk something out, you come up with a solution all on your own. Like, it was there all along. You just needed somebody to listen, right?
To understand.
Give you, to give you the time of day and feel like somebody actually gave a crap about you, right? I mean, that's...
Because just that, moment or experience can change, like, do a 180 for your for your position, or
for your mental health.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think if you could take anything away from this, it would be just to listen to people, not to give unsolicited advice, to pay attention to your friends, and to remember too that other people are struggling just like you're struggling, and
Like,
almost everyone.
Even if they don't say it.
They are. Everybody is, to some extent.
I think another thing, especially just like with the polarization of like politics and, just everyone wanting to give their opinion.
Yeah.
Understanding that you can't, associate what someone is saying necessarily with their entire,
With their person,
with their person, because you don't know if they're speaking on experience. You don't know what's happened that makes them feel that way. So to associate with, let's say the person is a Republican, to associate that by them being a Republican is a bad thing, that's wrong. They may have legit reasons for being a Republican. You can ostracize someone by making them feel like their opinion is not welcomed, by not even saying anything. And I think that's also important, that people also need to watch their actions and how they treat people. That's another big part of like mental health, is making people feel welcomed, even if you don't like what the person is saying. Like, people need to be able to feel like they're in a safe space. They need to be able to feel like they're entitled to their opinion. And when you shut people down and, give looks or make side comments or, laugh or, basically just question how they could feel that way, you're invalidating how somebody feels, and that itself is bullying.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely.
Whether you're doing it intentionally or unintentionally, it's bullying.
And it hurts people. Then they feel not safe to come and share their opinions or their thoughts with you because they feel like, I mean, who would want to, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you think about it, who would want to come and be like, well, I'm going to tell you this, even though I know you're going to judge me. You know, nobody's going to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to be sure that you allow people to have a safe place and to remember that people's opinions are just that. They're just opinions. And it's not the end all and be all, you know?
And if someone comes to you and say like, "Oh, I feel judged," like, don't be like, "I'm not judging you." Well, clearly you're doing something that makes that person feel judged. You can't just ignore the fact that that person is saying, "Hey, I feel judged." You know,
Yeah.
try to figure out why that person feels judged. Like, try to figure out, what am I doing to make you feel that way? Because if that's not your intention, you should make a point of saying, that's not my intention. My intention is never to make you feel judged. It's just, maybe I said the wrong thing, or I did the wrong thing, but that was not my intention. And I think that's also important.
I agree.
Yeah, I've definitely experienced where someone doesn't kind of invalidated my feelings, or like said, "Oh, you're not, right to feel that way because it happened like this, not the way you're saying." And in this particular occurrence, so there was some bad toxic things I was doing at the same time, so I take the blame for that. But there was more. There's more things going wrong on their side, and just coming to the
Realization.
or closure, like we talked about, a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Coming to the closure that this one person doesn't dictate, my happiness or my feelings being validated or whatever. It's up to me to, fix myself. Think you're not alone in trying to fix yourself, but ultimately you're the one who decides if you're going to be happy or not. At the end of the day, you're the one that's going to decide if you're going to make the changes that need to be made in order to improve your life.
Yeah. I think another part is just having like a good support system.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go and you talk to people, and after talking to them you don't feel better, not a good support system. Like, you shouldn't leave your support system feeling worse than you did when you came to your support system. It's supposed to make you feel better. And if you're not feeling better, then maybe it's not necessarily that that person isn't your friend, but necessarily in that situation, that's not the person you need to go to, because you have friends for everything. You have friends that you can lean on, and you have friends necessarily that you have fun with. Maybe the friends that you have fun with necessarily are not necessarily the friends you need to lean on. So that's also important, making sure you have the right support system. Another thing is that when people talk about mental health, I think this big thing is that they feel like a lot of people with mental health issues, their perception is off. Mm-hmm. And that is a stigma that just seriously needs to break. Like, you can't say because someone like suffers from depression that, oh, well, that person suffers from depression, they're overly sensitive. Like, everything just makes this person sad. You can't say those things. There are things that make people sad, and you can't invalidate it because this person may struggle with bouts of sadness that is just essentially out of their control. Or you can't make stipulations where a person isn't able to get upset, because if they get upset, then you're invalidating as it's not a human emotion. Oh, this person is getting upset because they suffer from X, Y, or Z. Not that that's just like a human emotion and everybody gets angry.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Also, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that, and there's also a difference between, being sad and then being depressed or having depression or anxiety. And a lot of people, I guess, mistake those two, or just think because you're, some people will think they're depressed, but they're actually just, sad in the moment, and it's, it'll be gone by tomorrow or a week or so. But in other cases, it actually is depression because, your life could be going great and you'd still be like, you just don't feel like things are going right.
Right, yeah. Well, in response to something you said earlier as well, when you are telling people your opinions on certain things and maybe they say, well, you're not an authority on X, Y, and Z because you haven't been through anything. Mm-hmm. You don't know what people have been through. And sometimes things are traumatic and people may not want to share everything with you. But just instead of jumping to the conclusion that 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 you're an expert on it. No offense. I mean, you may not be either. Let's just be clear here. Or maybe they may not feel safe enough to share X, Y, and Z with you because they just don't feel safe.
They're not ready.
Exactly. It takes guts to share things with people. It takes guts to open up yourself and to be vulnerable. I think we did a Philosophy Club radio hour on vulnerability and how scary it is to be vulnerable, how brave it is. I mean, it's one of the bravest things that you can do because you don't know what the return is going to be. You know that when you open yourself up to love and to, good things, there are going to be bad things that come after that. There are going to be good things, absolutely, but there are going to be bad things, and it's going to hurt worse just because you are open, right? And I don't know, people were saying it's good to be cautious. Other people were saying it's good to be vulnerable. And I think there's a balance between them.
It depends. It depends on who you're telling. Like, if I can take people that have been sexually assaulted, they don't shout that from the rooftop.
No, yeah.
I mean, that's something personal. It's not something, it's
something traumatic.
It's something traumatic, and it's something that it's good to share with other people so you can let other people know it's not wrong, that you've been through this, you can overcome it. But it's also something that you kind of want to keep close. It's not something that you want people to know you for. Oh, that's the person that got raped. Like, that's not how you want to be remembered.
Right.
And regardless, that's essentially most people that when they've been through a traumatic experience is how people remember them, is for that traumatic experience and not who that person is. Or you want to be careful that when someone tells you, oh, I've been through this, that you don't see them as a victim and you don't treat them any differently.
Right.
Like, even with mental health, if you tell someone that, oh, someone suffers from depression or they suffer from this or that, they think that's the only thing that defines you. It's a part of you. It doesn't define you. And you want to be careful when you're talking to people with that's been through something traumatic, or like they suffer from like a disability, that you're not necessarily censoring yourself.
Right, exactly.
Because that's also something that can make people feel excluded. Like, you're excluding them for the simple fact you think they're unable to handle it. Like, you couldn't talk about rape with the rape victim or something like that. You want to be cautious, but you don't want to make that assumption either, that you can't talk to people about things.
Right.
Mm-hmm. You got to put yourself in their shoes and say, if I was in their situation, what would I want someone else to do for me?
Mm-hmm.
And granted, that's not always what you want, isn't what someone else wants, but you still have to be conscious of what their wants and needs could be. And I've also seen or experienced like people who are just, I guess, negative, like super negative and depressed. Like they are depressed, but they're also being super negative like all the time. And even though they've got friends like looking after them, they're still just kind of, negative. And if you're always that negative, then that kind of pushes people away.
Mm-hmm.
And because, like right now in our life and, early 20s, young adulthood, your friend group is getting smaller.
Right.
And you're, trying to surround yourself with the best people, the positive people that make your life better, and cutting out toxic relationships or toxic or bad friends or people who just aren't there for you at all. And so you can get in a situation where you're wanting to be helped, but you're being vulnerable to the point that people don't want to be around you because they're like, this is all he talks about. This is all they talk about. And so, there is definitely a fine line between completely vulnerable and bottling everything up. And you just have to, I guess, understand that, well, you have to make change. You have to make changes in your behavior. You're saying, oh, if I'm doing this and people, don't like interacting with me, maybe there needs to be something that I can do to better receive, build a support system.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
We always have these awkward silences in this grade, guys.
Yep.
This is actually way better than last week's Philosophy Club Radio Hour. I'm not sure if it's been posted yet, actually.
I think he said he did.
Okay, he did. If he did, check it out.
It's pretty
It was a comedy show by a bunch of amateur comedians who weren't funny. Hey! Shout out myself. Lame. Yeah, I just burned myself. I don't know why I did that. Anyway.
We've definitely seen a increase in, like, a drastic increase in just the depression and anxiety, specifically as we're entering this digital age.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's been around, like 2011, 2012, somewhere, 2010, somewhere around there, where studies have shown that people who got, social media in college around that time weren't as affected as middle schoolers and teenagers getting social media at that time. And that plays a huge factor into...
Well, you have to think, too, because this is one of the reasons why I actually don't have Facebook. Because if you go on there and you look at people's, perfect lives and you're like, well, my life doesn't look like that, or you're obsessed with having this online persona or online footprint that you create, right? Because you want people to view you a certain way or think of you a certain way. I think it just kind of destroys your self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because you just end up comparing yourself to people,
Yeah, you always think that the people you see on Facebook, like, oh, that's what their life's like all the time. It's just sunshine and rainbows.
There's
but
so much
that's just
more put together.
That's just the things that they put out. They're always going to put out, the best thing
side.
possible.
Exactly.
And so I would say almost everyone, it's not going that great behind the camera.
Well, I actually saw a meme not long ago of this guy who was laying down in the sand. It looks like he's at the beach, right? And then you zoom out, and there's another person with another camera, and then he's like, "What is this guy doing?" Because he has like a bunch of sand out on the grass, and it's like a cloudy day, and so he has like sunshine filters or different things on him.
Right.
He's like pretending that his life is so great. He's not at the beach and stuff, when really he's just in his backyard being lame.
Yeah.
Shout out to him. No, I'm just kidding. But it's just like the links that we'll go through to make people think that we're all put together when really we're all just a little bit broken inside.
Some more than others.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that through social media and just interactions all together in like middle school and high school, girls are actually more affected than guys, because bullying for guys most of the time is physical, like getting your books checked or shoved against a locker, stuff like that. And with girls, it's a lot more social. So like,
Yeah.
And emotional.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's another thing that like really needs to break down. Like bullying is of any form. If you're making people feel less than, that is bullying. And there's so much like that, oh, this person was shoved, or this person, that's more than someone calling you a name. Well, not to say it's any less or any more, but those bruises will heal. What doesn't heal is what people say to you. What people say to you will stick with you, because what we found out is that it's the negative things that people remember. It's not the positive things. Like, you'll have positive, but you most likely remember the negative things. That's what really sticks with you. If someone calls you a name, you're likely to go with that thought for the like whole entire 4 years of high school and not thinking anything else. Doesn't matter how many people congratulate you or say something to you. It's those people that put you down that really just sticks with you.
Psychological trauma. Yeah.
and you like with a single tweet, you could start a rumor about someone and literally destroy their reputation, and that is really hard to deal with.
Well, I think this has been brought up on here as well, or maybe it was challenging the narrative. I'm not sure, but there was this woman who tweeted something before getting on a plane, and it could have been misconstrued as racist. And she only had 50 or so followers, but she was on this plane to Africa, and by the time she got there, she had lost her job. People were threatening her and her family's lives because her tweet had been misconstrued as racist.
And because
And
people think words don't hurt.
right,
Like,
yeah.
you know that, what's that? Sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me.
Yeah,
And
bull.
it's actually the complete opposite. Words will hurt people. And I think that's also the thing about, like, you know, like cyberbullying, is that people think because they're hiding behind like a TV screen or like social media or
They
whatever.
get braver, yeah.
Yeah, they like it. They feel like it's acceptable to say what they want to people, not realizing the weight it has. Like, you should never. I don't care who the person is. I don't care how you feel about it. You should never feel so obligated that you feel superior to say to another human being, "You should kill yourself."
Ever.
You should
That
never
should never come out of your mouth.
Never. I don't care who the person is. Like, even
I don't
if
care
you,
if it's Hitler.
like, if you feel that way,
Well,
keep
maybe Hitler.
keep that to yourself. Like, never say that to another person.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't want someone to say that to you. You know what I'm saying?
No, yeah, exactly.
That is just completely inappropriate. And, like,
Yeah.
you have so many people thinking that's acceptable. Oh, well, so-and-so did this, or this person is a racist, or this person is a misogynist, therefore it gives me the right to get online and say that person should kill themselves.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, and if you're the kind of person who does that and, like, you know, just goes on YouTube comments and stuff and just spews hatred, and like who you're taking time out of your day to do that. So how, you know,
You're just as bad as people
Yeah.
you're trying to, like, tell to
Exactly.
kill themselves. Like, that's horrible.
Yeah.
You should not do that. Do not ever do that. That is like the worst thing
I completely agree
to
with that.
ever
yeah.
do to a person.
Ever.
it's basically the root of bullying is just making people feel less than, or making people feel what you feel,
Yeah.
or less than more than
Well,
what you feel.
there's like a quote, right? Hurt people hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, people who feel insignificant or that they don't belong, they want to make other people feel that way so that they somehow are validated in those feelings, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Which,
Or it gives people also a sense of power.
Yeah.
And that's why it's also, you want to be able to be vulnerable, but you want to be careful what
Who you're vulnerable with and what you
because
say.
people will take those weaknesses and
and
use
exploit them.
and use them against you. And that's really what not all bullies are hurt people. A majority of them are.
Yeah.
But for the ones that are not, it's about a
It's a
feeling of
power.
power. I know I have my limits, I have my faults, which I guess that can mean they're hurt too. But you're finding someone who's almost worse off than you. And I know I can make this person feel bad, or I'm going to try to make this person feel bad. And that gives me some satisfaction, because who am I to have that much power to make someone feel bad about themselves?
Right, exactly.
If I'm going down, I'm taking this person with
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. Which is really sad.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, when talking about being vulnerable, I would say that if you meet someone or to go on a first date, you can't dump your
Entire
Yeah,
life
yeah,
story.
childhood baggage on the first date.
Yeah, well,
You have to build your
know,
trust. So yeah,
I struggle a lot.
Yeah.
X, Y, and Z happened to me. Also, would you like to get married?
But you
I have
also
to go.
You also
Yeah.
want to find people that you're vulnerable with, because that's how you know who your true friends are. If you can't be vulnerable with people, you're not being your true self, because
Yeah.
your vulnerability is part of you.
right, you just have to earn their trust
Yeah.
first.
Yeah, exactly.
Because if you do, say to the wrong person, they can, write a tweet about you, just rumor about you, and then everyone knows, and it just gets out of hand.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things, like, one piece people hear it, they can't unhear it.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, even if they come to know you, it's still like that's the first thing they thought of you. That was their first thing they ever heard about you, was like a rumor. Even if they come to, like, be your very best friend, the first thing they ever heard about you was a rumor. People can't unhear those things. You can't just, like, pretend like if you said something negative, like, people will just forget that. People don't forget. They remember those things.
Exactly.
Just, if anything, be mindful of your words. Your words, and this is another thing, you don't have to call people racial slurs. You don't have to curse them out. You can say things, do things that make people feel unwelcomed. That is just as bad as calling a black person the N-word, calling a gay person a homophobic term. You can do things
Yeah.
that make people feel like they're not welcome, that they're less than. If, like, the example I gave Hannah is like inviting someone to a party where they know no one, and the only person they know is you. and you almost did it. You did it out of wanting to say you're a good person. So you invited this person to a party, but the entire time that person is at their party, you don't talk to them, knowing full well they know no one at their party, and then get mad at them for like, well, I
don't really want to come. Like I don't know anybody. Yeah,
I invited you to the party. Like I did my part.
See, that's so like underhanded, you know?
It is.
It's like, yeah, I invited you, so you can't legally say that I am excluding you in any way, but still, yeah, it's
the worst kind of exclusion is when someone is mimicking as if they're including you. That is worse. Like, I would rather not be invited to a party than to be invited to a party where like
where everyone's like in on the joke.
Yeah, it's like no, like like I'm not even supposed to be at this party.
Yeah, exactly. Because you feel so outside, you may as well not even be there. You know?
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, not that we go to parties. I've never been invited to a party.
I have.
Yeah. Aren't y'all popular?
Now I don't like parties.
Yeah, I would just say that you should always treat other people like you would want to be treated, or how you would think most people would want to be treated. Because if you're just going around, spewing hatred, being negative, you're making the quality of life worse for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry that your life is so bad, and that you had a terrible childhood or whatever, but that doesn't excuse you to be an ass, for lack of another term.
Yeah.
No, yeah. I mean, there's no other term for it.
Yeah.
So if you just help one person, if you talk to one person and they feel like thanks for saying that, or tell someone to have a great day, tell someone that you're there for them. Just doing that one thing does such a big thing. That micro thing does such a big thing in the macro, even if you can't see it, because it can spread like wildfire.
Guess we'll keep the conversation going. No, that's true. Like, that's why it's like, even if you just give someone a compliment, you never know. Like, that may be the thing that stops someone from making a mistake they may regret. Like, that's the thing. Pick me up. It's like, some people don't need an excuse you don't need an excuse to be nice to people. Mm-hmm. Just be nice to people.
Yeah, it's not hard either. It's almost easier to be nicer than to
be mean. To be mean takes work.
Yeah.
Like, it takes energy to be angry. It also takes energy to be happy as well. But I mean, it's not good for you, and it's not good for the person you're being mean to either. So,
and you can't. At the same time, you can't let people take advantage of you. Like, take advantage of your niceness. Take advantage of you, like helping them, and them not them not doing anything in return, but not
meeting their fair share.
Right, or appreciating it, or because that's a toxic relationship right there. And where was I going with this?
Oh, that's a toxic relationship.
Yeah.
I'll say I heard this thing yesterday, where it's like a relationship is not 50-50. A relationship is 100-100. Because if it's 50-50,
I like that.
It means you're depending on the other person. You're picking up where they fall short. And it's not bad to pick up where someone falls short. It's good to have someone that, compensates for your weaknesses. But if someone's always being dependent on you, and you're the person that's giving, that's tiresome. And you'll do more damage to yourself. So a relationship, you should be giving what you're giving, the other person should be giving as well. And then it'll balance itself out, that you won't need to take, because you're both giving 100%.
Yeah, it's almost a hard pill to swallow. But like, what? But shouldn't I be inclusive to everyone and treat everyone great? Well, if they're not doing the same for you, then why should you then? Granted, if it's in a short period of time, that you could just be there having a bad day or week, and they're just grumpy or whatever. But if it's over like a couple months, and if it just keeps going on, then first you have to communicate it and say, hey, I don't feel like you appreciate this thing we have, this friendship we have, or appreciate my help, and I'm and are doing the same thing for me. And it could just be because they're the worst case scenario is they're doing it to manipulate you and to take advantage of you, and you just have to recognize if it's in a long period of time, recognize that that's what's happening, and you're not a bad person for cutting them off and saying like, no, the stops here. I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah. I guess that covers it. You need to know when to cut the toxic people out of your life, or when just someone is just not gonna change. I think you should also there should be room to give that person an opportunity, because like you said, they could be having a bad day, they could be having a bad week, but when it goes on continuously and that person makes no effort to change, that's when hey, it's not healthy for either one of us to be in this relationship, because you don't want to lose yourself. You don't want to lose yourself and becoming like the fixer to everyone's problems. Because if you fix everyone's problems and no one fixes your problems are just building up in the background, and you're just stuffing down your feelings. And anytime you stuff down your feelings, that's like a bad. It's gonna end. It's gonna end badly.
Yeah. I'm so bad at keeping the conversation going.
Yeah, me too.
But everyone is right. You're talking about cutting off relationships, bottling everything up. Well, quick plug while I remember it. There's this. There's a great TED Talk on shame and vulnerability by Brene Brown. It's called The Power of Vulnerability. It's a pretty good watch.
Sounds like that'd be good.
Keep on with that idea. She talks about the idea of being vulnerable and shame, like we're ashamed to let people into our lives, or like the only way you're gonna, if you're saying to yourself, why don't people like me, or why don't I feel like I'm not loved, you have to be able to, you have to be vulnerable enough to give love to be able to receive love, or just be vulnerable to give love. Because if you're not making an effort, if you're not, then nothing's gonna change. And I think that's one of the hardest things when it comes to mental health is changing your bad habits. Because if it's been it's going on for a couple years, it's really hard to break your bad habits of procrastinating, or not getting out of bed, just not being proactive in planning for your future. Not to say that you should be worried about your future. Your future is going to be fine, but it's not going to be fine if you don't do anything. If you sit on your couch and don't do anything, because it's just a hard pill to swallow. That maybe I'm the problem and not everyone else. And you have to it's just taking responsibility for your actions and behaviors. And you just have to ask yourself, what do I want in my life? Do I want to be happy? What are the steps to be happy then? What are the things I have to do? No buts about it, no excuses that I have to do in order to get the ball rolling. And it starts with really simple, really small stuff, like go for a walk out in nature. And I know a lot of people say that because it's true. Just being out, being away from a screen, or sitting down in your home. Bless you. Thank you. Being connected to the actual world we live in feels so great. And if you go for a walk or a run, releases endorphins in your brain, and you get runner's high, which is pretty great. Which is funny because when I've run before, I've never really experienced it until last week. I was like, oh, that's what they mean by runner's high, because I kind of feel high. But yeah, it definitely, there's definitely a lot of self-responsibility that needs to be taken into account. And I think that it's such a difficult thing to do, especially when you're alone. But just taking small steps like going out for a walk, drinking water, cutting out the junk in your junk food. I mean, it's okay to have junk food once in a while.
I agree.
But if you're on your couch eating potato chips and Coke, and you're asking, like, why isn't my life getting better? Why isn't, then I'm sorry, but it's not going to get any better anytime soon.
You have to put in the work. It takes work. If anybody has ever suffered from depression, it takes work not to be depressed. Because if you don't work at it, you'll just stay in that funk and you'll never get out of it. Like, no one can actually pull you out of the funk. You have to work yourself to get out of the funk.
Mm-hmm. And you have to, like, if you have this one life, how are you going to spend it? Are you going to spend it just sulking and basically just wasting your time? Or you're going to say, hey, I've only got, X amount of years to make the most of this lifetime. So let's, get out there and, make some strides to be able to do whatever I want, whether it's, travel, whether it's to go to music festivals, go to swimming with dolphins, or just meeting new people. You have to identify what you want and what are the steps to get what you want.
Mm-hmm. So, go ahead.
And starting with the smallest steps. There's an acronym for setting goals. I think it's SMART. Like, I'll have to look it up. I'm gonna look it up right now while you're.
Yes. We actually have someone who would like to call in, so I'm going to go ahead and allow them to do that. Give me a second. We have our first caller today.
Oh, awkward.
Hello?
Hello.
Okay. I was like, it looks like it answered. You didn't say hello. Okay, so today we have on Professor Manzi, who couldn't be here in person, but he's here in spirit, and his ghost is here on the phone to talk to us. Go ahead, Manzi.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. So, what are y'all talking about exactly? Happiness?
Mental health awareness, actually.
Oh, mental health awareness. Interesting. And so, catch me up to speed here, guys. I just got out of a very, very important meeting, and I'm here in my office because I have office hours right now. I'm actually keeping a student waiting, which I apologize for. So, anyways, why on the tangent of endorphins and runner's high, I think, was the contribution here? Just catch me up to speed just a bit.
So we were talking about, like, we've talked about making sure you don't invalidate people's feelings. At what level should you be vulnerable? How, like, unintentionally you may make people feel like they're not welcomed or that they're less than. Just kind of like all over the place.
Joking.
Yeah, we started with that, and then we led into what you can do to fix it.
Unintentionally so. Okay, this makes sense. It sounds to me like what y'all are talking about is to what degree forging deep connections with other people and maybe other ideas contributes or deteriorates your mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And ironically, it sounds like some activities can go either way depending on again. The mental, the attitude one takes towards them, as well as the expectations one has when pursuing deep connections, be them, again, more ideological or more relationship-wise.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Any thoughts on that? Are you just realizing slowly but surely that everything just serves to deteriorate mental health?
Okay, hold on one second, Manzi. Can I let you call him and then you do it? Because I have to go. You can't? No. Damn.
Did you just put me on hold?
No.
My own? The radio show that I birthed 6 semesters ago?
No, actually,
Suddenly I'm on hold. Why?
no, I have to go. So I was trying to figure out how to transfer the call to Cameron.
Oh, no. I hang up on you guys. Guys, I have to go.
Oh, all right then.
Dang.
Unfortunately, our caller has to
I'm
leave,
so
guys.
sorry I have to run. No, I do have to go. I'm sitting here with a student from our learning community.
Okay, all right.
You want to say hello?
Yes.
Yeah,
Hello,
go for it.
student.
Say hello. Hello.
Hello.
That's Noemi from our learning communities. Okay, so yeah, I'll let you guys go in that case and make the transition a bit more seamless because I think you guys got to be wrapping up now anyhow.
Yes, we
Yeah.
do.
All right, well, thanks for letting me call in, guys.
Well,
and,
thank you for calling in.
Yeah, I appreciate it, and thanks for plugging away at another. Well, now that I'm involved, another great episode. So, all right,
Yeah, absolutely.
have a good one. Now.
You too. Bye, Minzy.
Think about it.
Think about it. Okay.
Okay, so to summarize what we've just been talking about, we started talking about the destigmatization of mental health, why it's okay to talk about, why it's necessary to talk about in order to progress in your life, and then we talked about what are the steps you can do to improve it, which is more like self-help, not really philosophy-based, but yeah, I felt like that was a productive.
Yeah. We got a lot covered. You want to wrap it up?
Yeah, let's go ahead and wrap it up. All right, guys, so we're going to go ahead and wrap it up because it's 3:02 and we have got to go. We got places to be. So, you're listening to KDUX Web Radio, broadcast live from Richland College in Dallas, Texas. We are the voice of Richland College. Views expressed on this show are our own unless otherwise stated and do not reflect the opinion of KDUX Web Radio, Richland College of the DCCCD. Today's topic was basically mental health awareness.
Yep.
So thanks for tuning in, guys, and
Yep.
think about it.